We have you covered, whether you're a news nut, searching for something to listen to on your commute, or just want to be informed. Please let us know in the comments if you found any of these stories to be especially compelling. Don't forget to click the subscribe option to have the most recent news delivered to your inbox. So without further ado, let's get to the stories for today. What's your "I'm with the boomers on this" opinion? Story 1. Not everything needs to be connected to the internet or have an app attached to it. I just want my fridge to keep Smeg cold. I don't understand why we have to bring Wi-Fi into the situation. My fracking toothbrush has an app. Why? Why? OMG, what is the app supposed to do? I have no idea. I never downloaded it. I just tried to look it up, Oral-B Smart Series, and it looks like a game that maps out your progress, so basically encourages you to keep brushing the full 30 seconds per zone. It's completely redundant because it vibrates to let you know 30 seconds have passed. Who's going to pull out their phone, load the app, and watch every time they brush? That being said, it does have a little box that mounts by your sink with a smiley face that frowns disapprovingly at you if you brush too hard, with a clock. So I guess that's nice? I don't frackin' know, man. The batteries went dead in it about a year ago and I never replaced them. Just typing all this made me realize Oral-B is cramming way too much smeg in their brushes. That is a very over-engineered toothbrush. I literally just talked a friend out of getting a smart automatic litter box with an app in smeg. The price difference was $300 more than just a regular automatic scooping box, and you get, what? Notifications that your cat just took a dump? My nose does that for free. My indicator was always dig, 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 followed by a flying leap out of the litter box, spreading the litter like shrapnel. Don't forget the long pause. Well, guess he's finally done. Dig, 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 dig. Also, don't forget the nails on chalkboard. Scree, scree, as they scratch at the walls searching for more invisible litter to bury their poop with. And then, when you go check, you see that all they managed to do was flick a few pieces of litter on top of their turd and have left it completely unburied to stink up the room. Data collection. Targeted ads. I genuinely ask people to go offline as much as possible with devices. Not everything needs to be recorded. You really don't need an Alexa. Don't forget, the S in IoT stands for security. There was a very popular sequence in the TV show Silicon Valley, that's the one, where Guilfoyle just railed against that when someone bought a refrigerator that was connected to the internet. Love that series, and that definitely encapsulated this quite a bit. And I gotta say, I'm kind of with it too. Story 2. Basic home appliances, fridge, washer, dryer, etc., do not need a touch screen. I just moved into a new place. The microwave has Wi-Fi compatibility. I don't know what it's for or for using it, but it's an option. Hacking your microwave so I can give it a virus that means your food is either slightly undercooked or overcooked, but never just right. So, just a normal microwave then. It's like, stop adding touchscreens and just give me a functioning ice maker. One that dispenses Sonic ice. I hate my oven so much. It's a Genair fancy pants dual oven, stainless steel with a color touchscreen. When I open the door, steam comes out and covers the touchscreen. Sometimes it's just that I can't use the touchscreen at that point until I wipe the steam off. Other times, the whole oven shuts down, claiming there's some kind of internal fault. It thinks multiple areas of the touchscreen are shorted together, which I guess they kind of are. And the one time I used the self-cleaning feature, it cooked the internal electronics and I had to have the entire board replaced. Then there's the fact that everything you do with the touchscreen has animations, so it takes me 30 to 40 seconds just to turn the oven on and set the temperature. I learned from the cast iron sub that the self-cleaning function seems to break a lot of ovens. It's totally absurd. Again, we're on a similar type of feel with that one than the last story. I hate that when I was growing up with synthesizers. Every function in making a sound on a synthesizer had a knob and everything you could adjust. Then they just switched to these little pads so they could save money. And it was just so unintuitive. I hate them. Story 3. Tipping has gotten out of control. Coming from someone who relies on tips for income, it hurts people who actually should be getting them because now people are extremely agitated about any and all tipping. I was just at a music festival, and the guy who exchanges your cash for drinks tickets, not even the person who pours the beverage, had an iPad with tip options starting at 18%. Happened a couple more times after that, but not enough to really be annoyed. Oh man, this is so irritating. I went to a shop yesterday where I literally walked into the store, pointed to the item I wanted behind the counter. Girl from behind the counter put it in a small paper bag and handed it to me, and when I swiped my card, it said, "Enter tip amount." I'm sorry, but what? What am I tipping for? I stared at the screen for like 5 seconds looking for the no tip option, and there wasn't one. I felt good doing this, but I looked up at her and I said, "I don't want to leave a tip. How do I indicate that on the machine?" She said, "Press the red X." I mean, come on. An item was behind the counter. She grabbed it, put it in a bag, and handed it to me. What the frack am I tipping for? Frack that. I left feeling irritated. I am always confused by the option to tip at the self-service frozen yogurt place. What the hell? I'm also suspicious that it won't even go to the cashier. It'll just go to the owner because it's from my debit card. I try to tip cash when I can, but I wouldn't tip cash if I just made my own tasty froyo mountain. I am a total generous tipper, but for real, these days restaurants are like order from the QR code on the table, get your own water from the fill station, bus your own dishes when you're done, but oh please, the server who literally only ran your food to the table and did nothing more, tip them 20%. Fracking what? I went to a bar recently and the bouncer had an iPad with tip options for the entry fee. Tipping should be reserved for products/experiences that require a service or process like waitstaff, baristas, bartenders, etc. Even worse are the bathroom attendants who offer you mints and hand you a paper towel after you wash your hands and make you feel like you need to tip, even though you could have easily just gotten your own paper towel like 99.99% of the time you wash your hands in real life. It's such an insanely awkward interaction. Like, hey, pay this guy to watch you pee. When we were young, they wanted a tip for everything. The guy at the merch tent who didn't even stop his conversation with another employee to hand me 2 t-shirts from next to him literally didn't have to take 3 steps, asked if I'd like to leave a 25% tip. I agree that it's become pervasive, but I really think that's just because none of the employers want to pay a fair wage. Everybody's forced to, and then on top of that, I agree that a lot of owners probably want to keep the tips from themselves gone on the debit card. It won't be solved until everybody gets paid a fair wage for what they're doing. You know, that's it. It's never going to go away until we do that. Story 4. Music in bars is too loud. Edit to add that I've been a touring musician and live sound technician. I love music, but it actually sounds better at lower volumes, and I want to be able to hear it into my old age. I want to find just one bar where I can talk to my friends without screaming. What? He said he wanted to talk to us without screaming. Who's leaving? And shops. I've left clothes shops because the music is irritatingly loud and I can't talk to my partner. I worked in a store recently that had control over the music volume. Myself and coworkers always had to go over and turn it down because the store manager kept turning it up way too high. If I can't fracking hear the customer, I can't help them. And if the customer can't fracking hear me, they can't be helped. Like, Leave music at a normal, enjoyable level. Weddings, parties, stores, just about everywhere. If we're going to a concert, then crank it. If the music is to enhance the experience, and instead it's just drowning it in noise pollution, then there's a failure in execution. Story 5. If you're walking on a crowded sidewalk, get off your fracking phone. It's not the job of other pedestrians to avoid you while you make your vlog. Awareness of your surroundings is important. I've seen people stand in the middle of a stairway, blocking people going up and down the stairs just to do something on their phone. The lack of awareness of people around them is horrible. You know what's funny? I've had few experiences of people walking in groups or simply just one person walking right through the middle of the sidewalk, and they would just stare at me in the eye expecting me to get out of the way. I don't have anywhere to fracking go, you fracking buttholes. To the right, cars going over the speed limit. On the left, a wall. I know this is a kind of weird thing for me to do, but at some point, I just stop trying to yield to people who completely disregard sidewalk etiquette and plow right through them instead. If you're walking four abreast across a sidewalk like you described, the two on the right are getting shoulder checked. How is your "if we're single by 30, we're getting married" friend doing? Story 1. We both got married before 30 to other people. She married a cool dude and had 4 kids. They had a beautiful family, and so do I. I was genuinely happy for her and glad we didn't end up with each other. She perished of cancer a few years ago when her youngest kid was still in elementary school. My heart breaks for her and her family. I feel closer to them than they realize because I knew her since middle school. I think of them often and hope they're finding peace and happiness in this crazy life. I lost contact with mine. Hadn't talked to her in over 20 years, but it was the same deal. She married a pretty cool dude, had 3 kids, and just an awesome family. Last I heard, she lost one of her children at around 13. I felt absolutely awful for her and her family. I also feel like a piece of dirt because I never reached out to her. Edit. Y'all have convinced me that there's now a better time than now, so I'm gonna hunt her down. I'm pretty sure I might know someone who has her number. I don't do Facebook, but I'll look on Instagram. It's been too long, and she was my one and only female best friend since middle school. Y'all, I'm gonna do it. Already know how it's going to go, too. Wonderfully. You know that saying about the best time to plant a tree? Well, it doesn't have to be only about trees. Please, please reach out to them. My husband expired 2 years ago, and our kids, 11 and 8 now, would love the opportunity to hear about their dad when he was younger. Pictures, stories, videos, all of it. It would, of course, make them cry, but it would be a good kind of grief cry, and they would return to those stories and pictures again and again. My mom was unalived by her abuser. They'd been together almost all of my childhood when she and my dad split 6 years ago, and I'd give anything for good stories about her. All I get are stories about how weak she was or how upset she never left him. Or I get awful stories from our dad about how she was nice but never cleaned, or she could have done better but had low self-esteem, etc. Ticks me off because I know she was weak and had low self-esteem, and honestly, I don't have many good memories about her or with her, but I know that that's not the only person she was. She had 30 to 32 years of life before she met him. I was around 6, and I saw how she could be sometimes. My mom loved to laugh and loved to dance and loved to live, but no one ever tells me those stories. I don't even talk to anyone who used to know her because no one was there before or after she expired. My dad was only there because at first they thought they never divorced, so he had the power to make decisions, and then when he realized he didn't, he took my sisters. I was 18 and they were 16 and almost 14, and I had to handle it. I have no pictures of her. She hated pictures, for one, and I gave up fighting for anything and just let my little sisters have everything. The only thing I do have is her Tahoe, which she loved and was so proud of, and then her ashes, but I'd rather have happy memories. Your mom wasn't weak. Maybe she was ground down, Maybe she was broken, but that's not who your mother was. She was more than her circumstances. She sounds like a beautiful bird who couldn't find her way out of a cage. Don't you believe that stuff for a second. And frack the people who want to define your mom by other people's crimes against her. I can tell she was an incredible woman because she raised a great kid like you. Sending you all the love. I'm so sorry for your loss. Just reading your comment was devastating. Everyone who keeps saying your mom had low self-esteem and just tells you her faults definitely doesn't realize she was the strongest and bravest among them just for surviving each day living with that abuser when they didn't go through that hell. My late husband's dad perished when he was 6 years old. He didn't have many memories of him, and the ones he did have weren't good. His mom never told him any good stories either. He was convinced that his dad had forgotten him and moved on. And though that's true, it was because he had an inoperable brain tumor and was so high all the time to help with the pain that he probably forgot his own name. But a kid's mind can't understand that. Then, anytime he would see family on his dad's side, they would tell him how much he looked like him. So much so that he started to feel like they were trying to make him replace his dad. My husband was definitely not a saint. The last 4 years of our marriage were rough. But that's not something I'd share readily with our kids. To them, he was a great dad who made a stupid choice and it affected all our lives. He went for a swim while drunk and drowned. I want so badly for my husband's friends to share their memories with my kids, but the requests fall on deaf ears. So they'll unfortunately have to live with just my stories for now. I think that just proves how malleable our memories can be, and the truth is probably something we'll never completely accurately remember. And I'm just so glad that there are some people that want to be able to instill a really good memory of the person with their kids. It's really nice to know that that's what they want to do. Story 2. She's been living a wild life. We made the pact at 22, she got married by 24, divorced by 25, new relationship and got pregnant at 26, married at 28, and divorced at 30. In that time, she dropped out of college, went back to college, completed her associates, got nailed for a few substance charges, and is currently fighting for custody of her kid with the dad. So, when's the wedding? Right after the next divorce. Reminds me of a girl I used to know. Going back to our high school days, she was attractive, smart, and studious. She dressed preppy. She was ambitious and wanted to graduate college with a degree in accounting. She then goes to college, starts drinking, gets into partying, and discovers coke. Fast forward to today. We're both in our 30s. I haven't talked to her in forever, but I still have her as a friend on Facebook. She dropped out of college, had multiple failed marriages, had to go to inpatient for a while due to being self-unaliving, refers to herself as a Martian, and ended up having a kid with a local no-name rap artist. I blame accounting. Man, if she just made it to public, she could have continued the C habit professionally. Still a better path than posting sales orders all day. Sounds like you need to be not single and fast. Then it's a good thing I've got a backup pact if this pact went poorly. Gotta have pacts for your pacts. Gotta be thorough. That's kind of interesting. I wonder how deep some of these pacts go. Like, if you're never married by 30, or if you did get married before by 30, does that still count? I mean, how close and how accurate do these things get? What is I think it's the discussion that happens before it, too, that you've got to nail those details down. Almost like a prenup. Story 3. I had a friend in middle/high school that told me we should make a marriage pact. If we weren't married by 30, we'd get married. I lost contact with her after high school because she had a scary jealous boyfriend. She randomly added me on Facebook and asked for my phone number. I didn't think it was a big deal, so I sent it. She sent me a very graphic photo of herself and said, "Hey, it's me, Chrissy, And I was like, hot damn. We talked for a bit that day, but that was our only real conversation. She had brought up our pact, and we joked about it for a bit. A few months later, she messaged me asking if she could use my shower because her water got shut off. I thought that was unusual, so I just told her it wasn't a good time. That's happened to me before, and I normally message a family member or close friend. A couple days later, she posted a video of her and some dude, not her old boyfriend, smoking hard rock under a freeway overpass. She had a bandana on her face, and they filmed themselves smoking, headbanging to music, thinking they looked completely bad to the bone. I felt really bad for her at that point. Then I wondered if I had let her use my shower, if she would have robbed me with her cholo-looking boyfriend. Not too long after that, her boyfriend started posting online that she was missing and he can't locate her. 2 weeks after that, he changed his status to single on Facebook, and I still haven't heard from my childhood friend. I hope she's okay out there. Really hope that she can get her stuff together and get clean. This might just be the worst outcome I've read on this thread so far. Sorry to hear that this happened. You were 100% about to get robbed. I've gotten that call before and called her out on it, and she hung up right away. That's kind of awful. It's kind of one of those things where you have to say, be sure of who you're making a pact with and keep in touch with them, because you don't know how their life is going to progress that much, even if you have this talk about where you think your lives are going. What's an evil company not enough people talk about? Story 1. HCA, Healthcare Corp of America. The largest for-profit hospital system in the country, world probably. Imagine if Walmart owned your hospital. That would be an improvement over HCA. Can confirm, their laboratory practices are awful. They have no standards in releasing accurate laboratory results and are too cheap to make sure their hospital laboratories have working equipment. Some things need to be kept frozen before use for testing, and instead, they used a styrofoam box with dry ice. Speaking from Florida, I had a TIA last year, went to an HCA facility, also type 2 diabetic. They didn't let me eat or drink for 12 hours, then brought me spaghetti to eat, pancakes for breakfast, and then wondered why I was so sick to my stomach. Were they trying to unalive you? Ignoring diabetic diets is way too common in hospitals, hospital care, and long-term care facilities. I guess hospitals figure, what could one day hurt? If you're just type 2 and don't need insulin, but it's infuriating to me that it isn't taken more seriously for long-term stays. My spouse is type 2 but does require insulin and has a GI issue that often requires hospitalization with a liquid diet. All they give him is sugar. Clear Ensure with sugar, Jello with sugar, juice, etc. It's maddening. Edit. For everyone who wants to bully me over my husband's condition, 1. Clearly sugar isn't the devil. Duh. Maybe people have unique needs that you aren't familiar with. 2. Please promptly find the shortest pier to enjoy the longest walk off of. I remember when the crook who owned TennCare bilked the state for millions. For instance, charging $39 for a Band-Aid. Not the care involved, just the Band-Aid. The whole industry is damaged from insurance all the way to suppliers. We as patients have blindly accepted walking into a medical facility and having people tell us what to do, what we need, and then the bills show up later. Oh well. Imagine going to a car dealership and they pick out a car for you and don't tell you what the cost is. It's ridiculous. It was kind of hilarious going in as a Brit. I was traveling and needed a doctor's appointment. Procedure in the UK? Phone doctor, get an appointment. Sometimes a challenge I will grant. If necessary, get referred to a specialist. Procedure in the USA? Phone insurer, get a list of hospitals, phone hospital first, get told they don't in fact take my insurance. Phone second hospital. Get told the same, but only after turning up. Fly to Texas, work. Get told by a third hospital, all told to me by my insurer that would be fine. All say they are not in fact fine. Phone insurer from hospital, go berserk on them and inform them that they are in fact paying the bill because I'm not going to a fourth fracking hospital. Get seen. Apparently, I was fine, but my blood pressure was a bit high, so I needed to be medicated. Asked how much the medication would cost. Found out it was expensive. Phoned my GP at home. Told it's not that critical, just sort it when I could, and that the medicine is about a tenner a month in the UK. Get called by collections from the fracking hospital because of reasons. When I fracking paid the bill on the way out of the hospital, but apparently they forgot to charge me for something? Tell them to frack off. Phone insurer. Tell them that they did not in fact pay. Tell them that I will now be agitating for my employer to stop using them. Phone hospital. Grudgingly pay balance. Claim costs from my employer. I spent at least 10 times more time talking to people about money than the doctor. Why the hell do you guys put up with it? It's a hard thing to tackle and wrangle the industry. It's frustrating. Even my mother-in-law, who works as a nurse exec VP, tells people that unfortunately you have to be your own advocate when it comes to navigating all this nonsense. And it winds up deterring people from seeking medical help. It's like trying to file your own taxes. We in the U.S. need guidance just to try to avoid becoming penniless. My hope is that my son's generation will see some sort of universal health care here. It's ridiculous. Deterrence is certainly part of the system. If they can get you frustrated enough to delay or skip something doctor-related, that's a win for the insurance company since it's less they risk having to pay for. It's so weird that America treats healthcare as a commodity. Healthy people do things like go to work and contribute to the GDP. It's best to spend money and resources to make sure they can continue to do that. Paying directly for healthcare seems ludicrous. Yes, I realize it's funded through tax dollars in other countries, but that seems like a way better way to do it. I am very fortunate to have a very healthy personage, I guess you could call it. I can count on one hand how many times I've been hospitalized. Getting some sort of grave illness or injury is very scary to me. I just don't think I could afford it. Story 2. Wells Fargo's pretty shady. I've never worked for or banked with them, but they're pretty shady. It's amazing how every couple of years, Wells Fargo gets in trouble for doing something obviously and openly illegal. Then the government says, "Oh, no, person did this. It's just the company. Let's slap a fine on them and move on." I thought corporations are people, only when it benefits them financially. Was a teller and worked at a branch with a high volume of private banking clients, so the West Coast president often visited. I was there during the '08 crash. Watched high-level execs commend the branch manager for doing everything in her power to make sure bankers and tellers made their daily goals. They encouraged opening accounts without full transparency of fees or requirements. I learned Spanish to keep up with sales because the pressure was so high. I was a platinum teller. I made the daily wow. I consistently and ethically hit my sales goals, making gold 80% of the time I was there. I left the job because our branch manager was saying it wasn't enough. I needed to max out sales. She wasn't going to be paid if we didn't continue to sell even though we hit our caps. She was sweet but ruthless, and the pressure was too much. I finally said yes on the 5th try after a customer consistently tried to poach me to his business because I was fed up. It was demoralizing listening to bankers tell us to sell credit cards to customers who already had their lines of credit maxed out because they could use the card for advances. I completely helped someone pay their mortgage with quarters. Due to the time period, I was also there during the Wachovia merger, and their customers hated us. We weren't as easy to do business with. Wells Fargo had all these big bank rules and policies that weren't customer-friendly. I watched a lady damn near lose her house because the mortgage paperwork got lost during the merger, and her Wachovia loan officer was offered severance, and no one in Wells Fargo would help her. I closed my team bank account when I left and never looked back. They suck. You know those old movies or TV shows where you had the hillbilly or someone who would hide their money under the bed? That doesn't seem so far-fetched now, especially with the way banks are acting now. It's almost logical. Story 3. Elsevier, I think I'm pronouncing that right, established a near monopoly of academic journals, charged scientists to publish in them in the thousands, and charged the public to read them, subscription also in the thousands, convince other scientists to review the scientific content for free, exploiting younger scientists who need to build their CV, basically putting a paywall on the results of government tax dollar-funded research. Don't get me started on how major universities deal with STEM PhD students. Bringing people in as students, making them work 40-plus hours a week in a lab, purposefully misclassify them as students when they're really workers, apply for large government grants using data generated by these students, make them do all the grading for the underclass, and then complain when the students are begging for $40K a year. Instead, tell them they're lucky that as students, they don't have to pay tuition to be there. At the end of 5 to 7 years of this treatment, they'll give you a PhD. Scam. The tip for those who need a paper: if the author's contact information is listed, contact them and ask if they're willing to send the paper. Most researchers are more than happy to oblige, since they don't benefit from you buying from the journal anyway. I was about to comment saying the same thing. I have a few papers under my belt, and it's a real delight when someone is interested enough to ask me for the full text. It's a great way to establish connections in your field. And I get to feel good that a grand total of 11 people read the thing I spent a year and a half working on. It's also a good idea to get yourself a ResearchGate profile. Very easy to find full texts and interact with the researchers. You know those people that say the government is after you and studies can lie and everything, and that's the reason why we had people denying that vaccines and masks work? It's stuff like this, everyone trying to profit off of knowledge. Stuff like that. What's the most out-of-touch thing a rich person has said to you? Story 1. Me. Yeah, I love flying. I have a nice flight sim set up at home. Wish I could do it for real. Owner of the company. Yeah, the real thing is so much better. You should buy a plane. I love taking mine out on trips. Me. You sign my checks. This makes me think of one of two things. Either 1, they have no idea how much things actually cost, or 2, they were speaking without thinking. I've worked quite closely with a few very wealthy people. I have to confess that they just have no idea what stuff costs relative to a normal person's salary, including when they're the ones cutting the paychecks. The weirdest thing is that none of them were born into extravagant wealth. They had working/middle-class upbringings, and while they certainly came up having all their needs catered to, there's a huge difference between, why don't you just buy the brand name chips, and why don't you just buy an airplane? And someone who grew up thinking the former should still understand why the latter is an insane thing to say. And yet, I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10? I know we can't stop ourselves from quoting this line in this context, but to me, it shows what great comic writing Arrested Development was. I feel like at some point in the not-too-distant future, one banana is going to cost $10, though. It's weird to consider a $5 shake was considered unusually expensive in Pulp Fiction. Humans get used to new normals. I also feel like the story is a bit different if it's in Alaska. Only place I've worked where multiple people had planes or were working on a pilot license. Still a very expensive hobby, but bush planes aren't necessarily only for millionaires. Similar. Was talking to the former owner of my former company. All around good guy, but this one really got me. He sold the company and started a sustainable farm. Chickens, a few cows, a few goats, nothing big. Had a chef on staff, and they produced ready-made fresh meals and had a small local subscription service. Good stuff. I mentioned I wanted to be outside more, and the IT stuff was wearing me out a little. His advice, dead serious, was to buy a farm. Like, yeah, I'll just go drop $2 million on land, staff, animals, and food, all without knowing a thing about being a farmer. To be fair, I come from a privileged family, but like to think I'm not out of touch. My friend took over his father's company after getting a loan from his father to buy it. It probably has about 200 employees, sales in the area of 50 million. Many of the workers are new to the country, manual labor types. He was complaining about the wages people were asking for and said, why don't they just start their own companies then? Just go get a loan and just start one. The dude that got gifted a successful company with dad's money, he wouldn't have qualified from a bank, telling others to just go do it on your own. I tried to tell him it's not that easy for people. Maybe they're a single parent. Maybe they just weren't born wealthy. There's also nothing guaranteeing success. The amount of people who try and fail to run their own business and end up in financial ruin is not insignificant. My old boss at a former company pulled something similar. I did the estimating for residential construction projects there, and he told me I should buy a plot of land he'd sell me and have the company build it. I just looked at him incredulously and said, you know I price these houses, and you know how much you pay me, right? He couldn't fathom why I didn't have the money to build a house on an income that barely afforded an apartment. I really think that anybody like this that's in a company, in order to complete becoming a CEO for a company, should spend a month working the same job as their employees for the same amount of pay and live in the same neighborhood. I think there was a movie called The Super with Joe Pesci where he was sentenced to live in the apartment that he was a superintendent is, what they call a slumlord. Something like that, but maybe not as cruel. Only a little bit cruel. Story 2. In college, I made most of my money cleaning and tutoring for rich families. Here are the highlights. It's so much more convenient to have a sauna in your house. We ordered our wallpaper from Europe. It's the only way to go. I just bought the empty lot next to ours so we won't have neighbors. And my personal favorite, rich person's kid, gosh, I can't find any babysitting jobs. They've been taken by the 1%. Rich parent, honey, you are the 1%. The 1%. I'd feel a little hesitant about hiring outlaw bikers to watch my kid, but maybe their rates are competitive. It's a good thing that the parents are informing the kids to recognize their privilege. Also, kind of good that they're looking to get a job when they presumably don't need it. I noticed that too. These sound like good parents who haven't completely spoiled their kids despite having the ability to. Warren Buffett once said something along the lines of, you should give your kids enough that they can do anything, but not so much that they can do nothing. Living in Finland, I can honestly say that having a sauna at home is very convenient. We have 3 million saunas for a population of about 5 million, so anytime you're buying or renting a flat, you'll probably find a sauna in there right next to the shower. I grew up in a rural town in the U.S. that gets cold winters. Our house had a sauna next to the laundry room in the basement. The previous owners installed it. The kids at school all assumed we were extremely rich, but the reality is that saunas are not all that expensive to build or run. It's just a small cedar-sided room with a vent and a heating element. Obviously, it's all relative. According to Google, a sauna can cost between $1,600 and $100,000. I think because saunas are less common in the U.S., people think of the more luxurious versions that would be more common in spas and fitness centers. Yeah, I do agree it's all relative, but having something like that, a sauna or some kind of like hot tub or something, I think that's just great to just relax in at the end of the day. Just something. Or at least I'd love to have a place to live with a tub that fit me. Something like that, and not where my feet are sticking out, please. Story 3. I worked for Medicaid. The big bugs at the state government level had a poverty exercise where they had to try to budget at poverty level and live on it for 3 days. My, that was so difficult. No kidding, pal. That whole idea ticked me off so bad. Reminds me of when Gwyneth Paltrow failed the $29 food stamp challenge. I'm no fan of the Goop Lady, but I think it's reasonable that she couldn't do it, and it's also good that she publicly failed. That amount is just not enough to live on, and nobody should have to. Showing that she couldn't do it shows people that it's very hard to do. If she'd completed the challenge, then everyone would just say, "See, they're fine with that amount." I don't necessarily disagree with you, but allow me an argument nonetheless. I think it could have the opposite effect. Of course, she can't do it. She's been rich her whole life. But poor people know what foods to buy and they can live on it just fine. I know a lot of people see it as a point of pride that they would have been able to eat for a week on $29, not taking that line of thought to its end point. That the ability to eat for a week on such a small amount involves a huge reduction in diet quality. I can and have done it for $20 to $25 a week for a family of 3, me, spouse, and child. Thank goodness for Dollar Tree and YouTube. This has been in the last month. I lost my job and we have a special needs child. We scraped every cent we could. Sold things we didn't want to sell. Anyway, it can be done, but absolutely the quality is awful. No fresh fruit or vegetables. Working again now. Forgot how good a banana was till I couldn't have one. Your anger is justified, but good on them for doing it. I think our congressman should have to live on minimum wage for a month. I'll add, representatives should have the same health insurance as the lowest income residents in the state. Oh, I agree. I agree that it shouldn't just apply to people that employ us. It should apply to representatives and everything. Super PACs, I think, should be disqualified, and those representatives and congressmen should have the same kind of health insurance and the same kind of access to food that their constituents have. Just let them remember how we live, the people they represent.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
What has simultaneously got worse and more expensive? Story 1. Cable television. More commercials, channels upon channels of nonsense, ridiculous monthly bill. Wow. Google says the average cable bill is currently $217.42 a month. That is disgusting. Mine is $300 every month, but that includes high-speed internet Wi-Fi, DVR, and lots of channels. Hell, in the summer I'm outside mostly and don't even watch TV. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. I guess I'm still paying for cable because I always have and it's expected. Yes, I'm old. But you young whippersnappers are teaching me I don't need to anymore. $300 a month is a lot when I don't even use it. Guess I'll start watching the recorded shows on my DVR and turn it in and cut the cord. Could you potentially change to just Wi-Fi for a good discount? Or do you actually get some value from having the cable TV DVR? I think we only pay $80 for just internet, but we do have a couple of streaming services which bring our monthly TV cost to probably $110, $120. Not sure who they use, but if it's anything like my parents, Wi-Fi plus cable is like $160, $180, whereas Wi-Fi by itself is like $200. That smeg should be illegal. Yeah, I really don't understand why anyone bothers with cable anymore. Sports. especially football. It's damn near impossible to watch football without cable or without paying crazy amounts for multiple streaming services that allow watching football. It's impossible to watch baseball if you live in Market without cable or satellite. If you live in the state of Iowa, you're blacked out from watching 6 teams on MLB TV. What some people don't also realize is what they're doing on cable channels for reruns. On older shows, they speed up the video fractionally to add an extra couple of ad slots. I noticed this about 8 or so years ago because TBS ran a Friends rerun. I left them on in the background for noise, and one day I asked myself, when in the hell did Chandler sound so nasally? It's because the sound is sped up to match. You can also see this on old reruns of Law and Order on WeTV because of how rapidly everyone moves. It isn't natural. It can't fool the mind if you've seen the episodes before. The kicker, though, was a couple years ago, I was in the hospital. One channel was playing Friends again, but the broadcast block was for like 38 minutes. Standard Friends episode is 22. Standard block is 30 minutes. They added 8 additional minutes of ads for one episode showing. Having once worked in cable, Comcast, a lot of problems come from the producers and channel vendors. Example, Golf Channel decided one day they wanted to be on a different package and said to move the channel immediately or they'll pull it off the contract. So Comcast did, and the next day we had over 400 trouble calls for missing the Golf Channel because it all happened so fast we couldn't get word out. Channels have become blocks of old shows on endless repeat. I once asked my boss about it, and it's simply we sold them the time slot. What they do with it is theirs. I have my cable TV bill charged to a credit card, and I don't look at the fees as frequently as I should. I noticed yesterday that my bill was $178 per month. I called the cable company's cancellation phone line. The rep said she would see what she could do to lower the bill. She said that by adding the internet to my account, the total bill would be $124 a month. I get the internet on a separate service through my business, but hell, I signed up for an internet that I won't use in order to save $54 a month on TV service. It just sounds like the cable companies are just having a lot of trouble just letting go of the power they held. And now it seems like streaming services are in a bit of trouble because they've gotten away with not reporting how much money they make for so long, but now the writer's strike and the actor's strike are forcing that. I've not been a sports person forever, so I've never had those issues. I've usually just had an internet service. Story 2. Insurances. Last job I had didn't offer insurance, even though I was working 60-plus hours a week, and the cheapest plan I could find in my area was $300 a month with an $8,000 deductible. And the one time I actually tried to use it, I got a letter from the doctor saying, "Sorry, your insurance refuses to cover these blood tests." A letter from my insurance provider saying they needed more information before they would cover anything, despite having been covered for 6 months without them telling me that. They also didn't specify what the information they needed was. A bill from the doctor for over $500 and a bill from my insurance provider for services provided. Thought about leaving them a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, but their page on the BBB website had a big red warning at the top that said, "This company is known for filing lawsuits against people who leave false negative feedback," or something to that effect. My story isn't false, but I don't have the time and certainly not the money to fight them on if they sued me. On top of all that, they weren't even good at math and messed up my tax info so badly that because of them, I ended up owing several $100s in taxes because they weren't charging me correctly. I got a tax credit for the health insurance marketplace, and apparently the company was taking out more for taxes than they were supposed to, so I don't know how the hell it was still that expensive unless they were just pocketing the difference and passing along the tax trouble to me. Name and shame. I came here to say this, and as a licensed insurance writer, there are certain states I refuse to do business in because of how fracked up the situation is right now. Edit. States are California and Florida. If I didn't live next door to them, I'd drop Massachusetts, too. They purposely go above and beyond to be as convoluted of a process as possible. Some of the big-name insurance companies have dedicated teams just for Massachusetts. That's how much of a pain in the butt they are. Not an insurance broker, but a mortgage servicer. I was the one who had to tell people, so hey, we're ordering forced insurance for your property in 60 days if you don't give us a new policy. Homeowner. But that's crazy. I've been with my insurance forever. You have the info. You've paid every year with no problems. Me. Well, they decided your state sucks and they're pulling out, so you gotta find a new policy. Especially in Florida. I lived in New Mexico in the mid-2000s, and current Florida is equal to past smeghole New Mexico. I priced out car insurance here, and it was $260+ a month for full coverage, no accidents, tickets, etc. California was $125 in comparison. You are inadvertently, I'm sure, exemplifying my point. Her insurance company didn't exist to cover her in time of dire need. It existed to make as much profit as possible, and one of its strategies was washing its hands of as many situations as possible where they'd be obligated to pay out. She wanted insurance so that if anything happened to the bike, she'd have the means to get it repaired or replaced. Her bike was destroyed and her insurance company left her with the ashes. This is awful. But instead of having any empathy for her, you'd rather imply it as customer stupidity, or as the other comment implies, customer entitlement. But this is to be expected from someone who calls people worker-drone peasants. Good grief. Yeah, health insurance. I don't know, it seems like health insurance, as long as I've been alive, has always been a pain. It's just gotten progressively worse, and it's just been used for insurance companies to profit off of and not actually be a health service. It's awful. Story 3. Hot Pockets. They used to be pretty good, even cooked in a microwave. Now they're made with worse quality bread, barely have half as much meat, don't cook well, and they cost about 50% more. All this in just 5-ish years. I'm so glad you said this. I bought Hot Pockets a few weeks back, accidentally overcooked one, and it completely split in half. I couldn't believe how little stuffing was in it. It was my first time buying Hot Pockets in like 5 years, so I wasn't sure if I just remembered them being better or if they've actually degraded that much in quality. I miss the barbecue. Now it's all pizza flavors, or pretending they're not pizza flavors but still are. A lot of microwaved food I used to eat in my younger years tastes like smeg now. I loved those chicken Alfredo things you'd take out of the freezer and nuke for 2 minutes, stir it and eat. They were so good, one of my favorites. I tried one for the first time in years a few years ago, and they just suck now. I don't know if my taste buds have changed or if the formula changed, but I swear the quality is down. Same thing with Nesquik chocolate milk. I remember it being a nice, rich chocolatey taste. Now it tastes chalky. Stouffer's turkey tetrazzini was my go-to for literal decades. I'd bring them to my retail job in high school in the 80s and 90s. Always a good, fast, hot comfort meal. About 2 years ago, they became downright inedible. The price doubled, the turkey became nothing but fatty gristle. You get maybe one mushroom and half the pasta. I was so unhappy and outraged. I lived in a good restaurant desert. Like, the closest decent ones are like 10 miles away at least. So, off to allrecipes.com, and I learned how to make my own damn tetrazzini and freeze that. These food prices are turning me, very grudgingly and resentfully, into a better cook. Well, at least there's a silver lining to that one. But everyone's complaining that actually prices are going up, but the size of ingredients, not just the quality, the size are going down. I think people are calling it shrinkflation now. I'm pretty sure that's been going on for a while too, but it's now just coming back to our attention. What discontinued thing do you really want brought back? Story 1. An almost adless internet. We spent so long getting rid of pop-up ads. I don't know why they became acceptable web design again. Oh, it's okay now that they're modals. They pop up inside the window instead of outside. Brilliant! It is a substantial improvement in that the back button just does away with the whole thing. They can't hijack your OS anymore. Things shifted when they were legitimized. Also, one that isn't more and more AI-optimized SEO smeg. It's a problem that Google is now so big it's starting to shape the internet rather than just index it. Edit. Poor wording. I'm aware it's been going on for years now. It just seems like in the last few it's become especially egregious. Oh man, the tech support how-to web pages are the worst. You Google some hogwash problem you're having, and all you get for 3 pages of Google is the exact same AI-generated smeg that spans about 5 pages and ends with, "Try rebooting." Bring back the obscure forms with the answer you need. It's gotten so bad I've started using Bing from time to time. This is why I lose my smeg when someone makes an effortful support post and some jerkwad says, "Google is your friend." When someone lists the 16 things they tried already, they probably fracking Googled the problem and decided that explaining it to a human would be the best course of action. This is a problem that is frustratingly bad as well on YouTube. Dude, I will literally search a 2012 YouTube video word for word, and all I get is a bunch of clickbait videos that have come out in the past 6 months where the title doesn't even remotely match what I searched. It makes me so sad. Feels like old YouTube is so lost that the only way to find exactly what you want is to have the exact link. I love putting search terms in quotes and Google just ignores them anyway. It's so random when it does it too. Sometimes it'll pick related terms that aren't even close. Sometimes it seemingly ignores them completely. Sometimes it'll tell you, "You searched for X, but we're going to show you Y," despite not being the same thing. Things that should have results show 0 results. Some search terms just bring up those generic web pages that put common or vaguely similar searches into a template and then try to sell you something unrelated to what you were searching for. No, I do not need your suspicious driver repair software, nor would it help at all in this situation. You used to be able to craft queries for effectiveness, but now it seems like it's being made less and less useful. That's an interesting point about AI just generating content just to try and get clicks. I'm wondering if there's going to be something in the future where AI is going to be used to help people get past all of this stuff and get to what we really want. AI just seems to be very useful at doing all the menial tasks that are just mind-rotting, and hopefully we can just use it to our advantage rather than have it being used against us. Story 2. Products that were meant to last and not broken or obsolete in 1 or 2 years. Especially clothing. These days I'm paying $30 on average for a top that begins to fray after 2 washes. That is literally unacceptable and hardly anyone seems to be talking about this. I've recently adopted some of my father's hand-me-downs from the 1980s, and it's like they're brand new. The difference in fabric quality is insane, even when it comes to basic t-shirts. Fast fashion. It's a tough one. At least there's still companies like Patagonia making high-quality stuff. You pay a premium, but they'll fix those jackets forever, I believe. Broken zipper? Send it in. They'll fix it for free and send it back. Again, it's really the fast fashion brands that are so bad. H&M, etc. Just the lowest possible quality stuff. I have my parents' original fridge that's about 40 years old. When Dad upgraded it, I took it. Runs perfectly fine. He has to replace or repair his every 10 years. My mom, in her 50s, got a used fridge from an older couple back when she lived on her own before she met my dad that still runs to this day. We don't know exactly how old it is, but it predates my parents' 30-something years of marriage. Predates. Did I say that right? Predates. Plus, however long that older couple had it for, it's older than me and now lives with my uncle since we got a new fridge and survived an accidental tap from my mom's car. This fridge was in the garage and my mom wasn't paying attention to how close she was. Besides a dent in the door which my dad fixed, the thing still ran, no problems. They definitely don't make appliances like they used to. The annoying thing is that they don't make them like they used to on purpose. Yep, unfortunately, that's something called planned obsolescence. Companies plan for these things to fail to try and sell you something new. It used to be the role model for a business is basically give away the razor and keep selling the blades. But now they're just more interested in creating a razor that you have to buy as well as the new blades. Story 3. Altoid sours. Love those so much and still use the little tins to store random things. I would do unspeakable things for a fresh tin of those tangerine pieces of heaven. Small candy shops recreated those. They're extremely close to the real thing in my opinion. You are a saint. Dude, this is something I didn't even realize I forgot. Frack, I miss those things. I remember eating a handful of Altoids without realizing they could be sour, and I think it's awakened something in me to love sour. I also like the Warhead Extreme sour candies, but I've had a hard time finding them in retail stores. Not even sure if they make them, because I'm sure they're a choking hazard. I loved Altoid ginger. For almost a year, I could still get them at the little shop at BWI Airport in the baggage claim area. I would go there just to buy the Altoids, even if I wasn't flying. Probably 10 years or more since they stopped being available anywhere, and I still check every store I see Altoids on display. I think it seems like the spicy trend, like spicy chips, the one-chip challenge, has kind of replaced sour candies and stuff. I remember those. I remember for a while being really acclimated to some of the sour stuff, and that really wasn't my thing usually. I have a very sweet tooth. Story 4. Old school Pizza Hut. R.I.P. the salad bar with that amazing creamy Italian dressing and being able to get pitchers of beer or Pepsi. Remember the retro arcade machines they used to have? Pure nostalgia. It's been in slow decline. First, they got rid of the dessert pizzas, then the salad bar, then the stained glass lights above the tables, and then they terminated Galaga. But because of the pandemic, my local Pizza Hut fared even worse and showed no sign of recovery. Half the restaurant is blocked off with tables and stuff moved around haphazardly. Only a few tables are left that you can sit at, but they won't serve you anymore. You have to order at the counter and take your food to the table, eating in an empty, dank restaurant like a rat person. We did a movie in a one-stoplight town in Kentucky in 2016, and they still had a full-service restaurant-style Pizza Hut with a salad bar and everything. That was the last time I ever ate in a Pizza Hut Prime. It's weird that one day you do something without realizing that will be the last time you do it. Man, when I was a kid, Pizza Hut was fancy. My sister and I did their Book It program every summer, and nothing beat how important it felt to get to go to Pizza Hut and eat your personal pan pizza under those stained glass lights. When I was in high school, my friends' parents would take us to eat there every so often, and it just had this ambience, you know? We may as well have been at a Michelin star restaurant. For being fast food pizza, it was also good, and nothing beat a Pizza Hut pizza fresh from the oven. My college student center had a Pizza Hut Express in their cafeteria. Their buffalo chicken personal pan pizzas got me through my entire junior year. When I moved to my current state, Pizza Huts were few and far between, but still relatively accessible. A while back, I tried to order a pizza from my nearest location, and it was gone. It seems like all the Pizza Huts in my state are gone. No announcement, no fanfare, just gone. It truly is sad. Story 5. New episodes of old cartoons. Regardless how old I'll be, cartoons will still rock for me. I'm 62 years old and watch cartoons every day. I have for years and years. No shame here. Now that I have grandchildren, it makes cartoons even better. Every Christmas I make it my business to watch the Mickey Mouse Christmas animated movies, Once Upon a Christmas and whatnot, along with The Nightmare Before Christmas on Halloween night. When I was younger, my family wasn't into Halloween, so Halloween night, The Nightmare Before Christmas came on the TV, and that was how I knew the countdown to Santa coming had begun. Aside from that, I started watching the original Pokemon series with my nieces and nephews to introduce them to it, and so far I'm loving it. Man, I somehow stumbled upon Gargoyles, and I hovered over it, and a preview started playing. I got slammed with nostalgia. Took me right back to the night I had Gargoyles blaring, hanging off my bunk bed in an old trailer up in a holler in Kentucky. I stole my mom's mean green and sprayed my closet with it. Every piece of clothing had the left side completely bleached. My mom had just gone school clothes shopping, and I didn't realize what I'd done. I was in kindergarten, and I wore clothes all year with bleach all down the side of them. I mean, it didn't really change some of the clothes much, but it wasn't far from the style, especially the acid wash jeans. I do, to this day, regret that with everything in me, because my mom started crying when she saw what I'd done. We were old smoky pokey poor, and I realize now just how much that would upset someone in her position at the time. Damn previews.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.